I think we're live.
I think we are live. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Reputation Winter Product Innovations webinar. I am so excited that you've decided to join us today to hear about all of the delightful solutions that our teams have been working on for the past couple of months to solve some of your biggest business problems. I'm going to go ahead and introduce the speakers for today so you know who is talking. My name is Timi Chu. I am a group product manager here at Reputation, and I oversee our customer experience products, specifically around social media. I'm joined today by our Director of Product Marketing, Phil Rapisardo. Phil, you've actually held a couple of other positions here at Reputation, right?
It's going on 4.5 years of a handful of hats, but
Wow.
the most recent is running product marketing.
There you go. There you go. Lots of hats. So Phil and I today are going to be talking us through the winter product innovations that our team has been working on. Before we get started, I just wanted to note that today we only have about 45 minutes together, and it's certainly not enough time for us to talk through everything that our teams have been working on. So if you're interested, feel free to check out the Reputation Help Center to see our bi-weekly release notes where we discuss all of the feature enhancements and all of the new functionality that we release, even some of the smaller features, not just the large ones that we'll be highlighting today. And then we have a couple of housekeeping items to mention. So first is that as Phil and I were preparing for this session, we wanted this to be as interactive as possible, meaning as you're hearing about the functionality that we're discussing, please feel free to ask any questions that you might have, chime in with any thoughts. You should see a button on your screen that says ask a question. Simply click on that button, ask the question, and Phil and I will try to incorporate that into the webinar as best we can. We've also left time at the end so that we can address your questions. Secondly, is that you'll see some polls every so often. So we want you to just give us some feedback as to how you can see yourself using some of the functionality that we're discussing. So please enter those questions, and you'll also be able to see the responses that the audience is providing. So without further ado, I'm going to go over our agenda for today. So the couple of items, which is actually 1, 2, 3, 4 rather than all ones, but in our minds, they're definitely the top of the list, is first, social community management in Inbox. So this is how you can manage your social media engagement at scale. So I'll be kicking us off with that. Then I'll be passing it off to Phil, who will be discussing Apple Business Listing auditing. So this is a really exciting deepening of our partnership with Apple, a leader in technological innovation, and we'll be talking specifically about search and business listing auditing. Next is Departmental Listings. So this is a solution that we heard was a need from you. So we will show you how we can better help manage primary and secondary listings. And then finally is social listening. So this is one of our newest product offerings within the customer feedback management suite. And we'll be showing you what exactly that looks like. So Phil, you ready to go?
Let's do it. And want to reinforce one quick thing. You said it really well, but we don't want to backload the Q&A. We're not going to talk through our stuff and then answer questions at the end. So please do jump in, ask questions, and we'll be sprinkling those in as we go.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to be starting us off with social community management in Inbox. So as many of you already know, Reputation offers a social suite where you can publish to many different social media sites at scale. This includes Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, GMB, and the goal here is for you to build an authentic following of an authentic community of followers, rather. And Phil, I was just wondering, what are some of the social media sites that you typically use?
So I'm 34, so I'm somewhere in that millennial range. So
Okay.
I am an avid Instagram user and a Twitter user. I still have a Facebook login and I go into that, but I don't know if I'm into any of the other newfangled social channels now.
Okay, all right, I'm right behind you. So, I'm also a big Instagram user. I love how visual it is. I love that people, are always sharing their products and showing off what some of their functionality or services are. So, Phil and we always are just browsing through Instagram, and I bet some of the things that you often do is comment on these posts, right? So you maybe ask a question of, how much does this cost, or when is this product going to become available, or just questions about I didn't have a great experience the last time. How can I get a refund? All of that is social community engagement that your followers might be putting onto your posts. And so where social community management comes into play is you engaging back with that engagement, right? Answering the questions that Phil and I are writing onto your post, addressing any of the complaints that might even come through. A lot of folks see that as an opportunity to give you feedback. And so this is your opportunity to engage back with them and maybe even turn a detractor into a promoter in that situation. So Reputation came out with a solution called Community Management in Inbox, where we help you manage all of your social comments across all social networks in a single place, meaning every single comment or question that is left onto your social page is brought into the same place so that you can handle those customer engagements all in one go. And so I want to show you exactly what that looks like. And then you can see for yourself how this can help you manage responding to that to your community. So this might look a little bit familiar because it's the same exact inbox as what we launched last quarter. So in addition to the private messaging channels, which let me just show you, this is an example of a Facebook message that had been sent over to this RDC real estate property management location. So this is one of our test locations. So this person is looking for a 2-bedroom apartment, and I'm able to respond to these private messages. But in addition to these private messages, these users might be engaging with your posts, right? So these are the posts that you are already working so hard to put out onto social media. You're taking images, you're writing captions, you might have a whole approval process that's managed within Reputation. And so now let's not drop the ball here, right? Folks are engaging with you directly on social media. They're asking these questions. In this case, this is even a lead in my mind because this person is interested in living within this space that you are advertising here. And this is a good opportunity for you to either reach back out to this user directly through Facebook DM, or you can comment directly on here. So one of the primary actions that I'll highlight is, you'll probably want to reply to this individual, meaning you can type in a single response, so 2,500 per month, right? Or if you want, we can pre-populate some templates. So these are for frequently asked questions, right? If you're getting a lot of questions of when I can come in for a virtual, or when I can have a virtual tour, when I can come in for an in-person visit, these can be some of the responses that you pre-populate for your team. So that's...
We have 2 questions that came through. I wanted to just throw out
yes.
Sure we're tracking. The first more logistical that I'll answer was an ask about getting a copy of the deck. The answer is yes, absolutely. If your screen's a little small, you might want to see if you can enlarge it to go full screen. If not, yes, we'll share the collateral that you're seeing. The second question, more in regards to the inbox product, there's questions around just confirming that it's both comments and private messaging that can appear in here.
Yes, that's a great question. And yes, that's exactly the intention of the inbox, where we can show everything that's coming in for your location, private messages, Facebook comments, Facebook posts that others are publishing onto your page. And where we're going with this is consolidating all of the other sources of customer feedback. So Phil, as we were talking about this, it was reviews, surveys, right? That's the direction that we are headed in. And our goal is to give your location users a single place where they can engage with all of the feedback that has come in. We know that your location managers are busy. If you are one yourself, right, you're probably multitasking at the moment, trying to respond to emails and respond back to your residents or respond back to your dealership users. And so we understand that, and we want to give you that single place where you can just know that everything is coming into the inbox.
Yeah, I think the way I think about it is, and I'll just admit something about our platform, is previously you would jump in and you'd be like, I have social comments, I have to click on social. Yep. I have messaging, I have to click on a message. I have reviews, I have to click on reviews. Where we're building towards is literally one spot, inbox, that has all of these customer conversations, so that even in our platform, if you centralize all that, it's one place to go to manage it.
Exactly. And so one other thing I want to point out is when it comes to customer feedback management, feedback is only half of it. The other half is the customer, right? So over on the right-hand side, we now have the ability to see all of your customers' information. So if I happen to know this individual's email address or phone number, I can add that into here as a customer record. These records can drive review requesting, they can drive bulk messaging. I can also go ahead and see all of the engagement that I've had with this individual. This happens to be myself. I was going in and just commenting in preparation for this session. And so I have quite an active history, right? So one of the benefits is that I can see all of the engagement that Timi, this individual, has had with the page, whether it's been on private messages or social posting. In the future, when reviews make it into here, it'll also include reviews. So this is a one quick glance where you can see, wow, this is a really active individual. She's really interested in renting my apartments. I should probably reach out to her and make contact immediately. Yeah.
We have another question come through. It's about filterability. Specifically, the question was about, can you filter by location? But I think just generally, Timi, if you can talk about how the filters work similar to the rest of our platform.
Yes, absolutely. So for a location user, they'll still only continue to see the messages and social posts that are relevant to them. Meaning I won't see, the non-Greendale posts if I don't have access to those locations. Another thing is that we're able to provide metrics. So I'm actually going to go over into the metrics tab where down on the bottom, we show location performance. So by location, we're able to see how many conversations, Acre Woods had, how many of them have been opened, assigned, responded, not responded. Keep in mind that our inbox works alongside, has workflow automation, meaning based on keywords or based on sources, we're able to auto assign and auto triage these conversations. So that's definitely a nifty set of automation that makes it really easy for you to manage these conversations at scale. And so I'm going to go back into the slide really quickly just to wrap up here on this topic. And so, yeah, last quarter, we launched our messaging offering, which is through the inbox. Hopefully you're starting to see where we're going with bringing that consolidated view of customer feedback into the inbox. The value here is this is an opportunity for you to build customer loyalty, meaning as customers like Phil and myself are engaging with your posts, using that as an opportunity to interact with your customer, they're more likely to follow you in that case. They're more likely to be impressed, right? Imagine you comment on a page that belongs to a big brand and you actually get a response. Like that's a pretty awesome feeling for the average consumer. Another value add of this is the ability to generate leads. So in that case, that individual was really interested in renting that particular space that I had advertised on my social media post. And so this is a good opportunity for you to jump in and actually start generating those leads, not just leaving the person hanging, but actually following up with them and then ultimately driving a sale. One final note to close this out is that if you don't have the capacity within your organization to manage this yourself, Reputation's here to help. We offer social media community management services where we can respond on your behalf, and we're happy to discuss that with you. And so that's everything on community management. I'm actually going to be passing it off to Phil now, who's going to be covering our Apple business listings. So Phil, take it away.
Thanks, Timi. Yeah, so I've been in the I guess the business listings game for about 9 years, and if you'll humor me, and I guess you have no choice, I'm going to give a little historical context to Apple because I think it's really important to kind of orient ourselves on the difference between Apple and pretty much everyone else that you publish business listings data to. Apple's always had that very Steve Jobs mindset, which is essentially like, we're going to do what we want and build the thing we think is right for you. And we're not really open to working well with others and taking in additional information or data. That has applied to Apple Maps historically. So with Apple Maps, the way that we've always worked with them is we send them your location data, if you're a business listings client of ours, through this thing called a publisher feed. Think of it as just like dropping a file or a spreadsheet into a thing that shoots off to Apple. And then here's what would happen historically. They'd take the file. They would give zero feedback on whether or not they accepted everything. They would not give you the ability to audit that information and see, did that phone number actually update? Did that website actually update? And you were left a little bit in the dark. Right. And that's very different than what you would see with Google or with Facebook, where there's an API that you're directly connected to, speaking in both directions, where you can kind of validate everything. And by the way, that Apple relationship is true for pretty much anyone who does business listings, because I've worked at different companies and, it's all the same story. Take all of that and then now look at the idea that with Apple, we've really worked to enhance our relationship with them. So we're now talking regularly. We talk multiple times a month with the Apple team, and we're really excited because our roadmap includes a handful of features that are going to be coming out, or product innovations that are going to help us enhance this Apple relationship. Mm-hmm. The first one is Apple Business Listing auditing. So the way to think about this is really simple. We're still sending them your data. Now we can actually track whether or not that data is being updated on Apple Maps. Is the phone number right? Is the website right? Are the hours of operation right? And that is really, really important, obviously, because once we see where there are inconsistencies, we can then go in and try to remedy any of those inconsistencies and make them right. I'm going to show you this live, but before I do want to launch a quick poll, because I'm really curious amongst this group who uses Google Maps, Apple Maps, or another application, because this is something that pops up fairly often. So you should see that pop up on your screen right now.
Yeah, and while you're answering that poll, Phil, I just have a quick question. I hear you're talking a lot about Apple, and I know that in the past, a lot of our customers have been working closely with Reputation to optimize their presence on Google, right? So one of the questions that came through is, is Apple the new Google, and how should I be viewing that?
It's such a good question. And especially if any of you have ever talked to me, because I've joined a lot of customer calls, I've probably talked your ear off about Google over time.
Exactly. So now are you going to start telling me about Apple?
The reality is that Google is massive and it has a huge market share of search, and that ultimately that is still the number one place where you want to make sure you're maximizing your presence. What's so interesting about Apple is anyone who owns an iPhone, it comes preloaded with Apple Maps. Right. And so Apple will say there's about 100 million users of Apple Maps. Now, I'm looking at the poll results coming through. There's a heavy Google Maps skew in the group that we have on the call right now, which I actually I use both a little bit because I have Apple CarPlay in my car. So that uses Apple Maps. I use Google Maps on my phone typically. But you get the idea. I think the point is there are millions and millions of people using Apple Maps. So it's not something to be ignored. And in fact, their reach, because of some of the innovations they're doing with things like Apple CarPlay that I mentioned, means that we expect them to continue to grow in the amount of adoption that normal consumers have with their product. So it is really important to make sure that your information is right at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, that's great. I know a lot of our customers utilize a service of ours called Managed Services for Google. So it's great to hear, that that's still going to continue adding value and it's not changing. But Apple is, really a next priority, if you will, right?
And there is about, just so you guys know, there's about a 75-25 split, looks like, Google Maps to Apple Maps on the group that we have on the call. So thank you for participating in that. And, ultimately that's interesting. I think that it depends on what kind of group you get together, but Google Maps definitely does have a little more adoption at this point, a little more usage. I mean, I could say the same thing. Every Android phone has Google Maps on it. So you're going to get both sides of that coin at the end of the day. There was a question that came through around resources on how to claim your Apple Maps in business listings. So when you buy business listings from us, there is a process for us going about building that publisher feed file, going out and claiming those listings. Historically, the gap has been that we haven't had this audit layer to be able to essentially say, oh, great, they did create that listing. Here it is. Here's the accurate information. You literally had to go out and probably look on Apple Maps to see what was there. Yeah. The advantage of what we have now is we're going to be able to track that and then isolate where there are inconsistencies and kind of go from there. I'll really quickly just show you, I'm in the listings part of our platform, specifically in listings accuracy. And this is what you're going to start to see populating is Apple is going to be amongst the other sources we're tracking. And you can see even now, in this instance, there's 103. It's really small, so you probably can't see it. There's 103 addresses that are incorrect on Apple. And this will become almost like the priority queue of what we want to make sure we're going out and managing. And this can also be viewed on an individual location level. So you'll see the same kind of business card model and calling out what is accurate and what might be inaccurate if and when that comes.
Got it. So Phil, just for those of us who aren't quite as familiar with business listings, when we say auditing, right, is that the point where you're showing that there are 103 websites that are missing, or these are the discrepant points? Is that what we're referring to?
Yes, we're literally auditing, meaning we know you've given us your data, so we know the data that you have to be correct. And auditing means, does Apple reflect the data in the same way that it's stored in our platform? And same with any of those sources that you see in that section, essentially.
Got it. No, that's super helpful, because I know some of our customers are either only using social or only using reviews, but business listings is another area where we're able to help you understand how accurate your business listings are.
Yeah, and ultimately where we want to go with this is, it's one thing, and this is probably true of all of our products, it's one thing to kind of give you, here's the data and what it looks like. It's quite another to say, here's what you should do about it.
Right.
And, maybe this is a minimal step, but it's a really important step, which is first you have to identify where the gaps are, and then we can help you say, well, let's take these actions.
Yes.
That's what we want to get to, is we're a platform of action, to use a very cliched term, where you're doing things with what we're providing, not just looking at it at the end of the day. So I'm going to move on to my second piece. And this is, I want to make sure I explain, there's there's context that's involved in this, because the title of this product innovation is Departmental Listings. But any of you that have worked with us and created departmental listings over the last couple of years would probably say, well, I already do that. So I want to make a clear distinction. Google has, for a while now, allowed us to say, like the example on the screen is a car dealership, to say, well, let's create your service center, your parts, your collision department listings. And so when you look on Google, you're able to see something like, let me grab my screen again and just show you exactly what that can look like. You're able to see something like this, right? Departments, collision center, parts center, service center, et cetera, et cetera. So that isn't new. Although there is more and more and more influence coming from Google that basically says, you should be doing this if you have a business that has not just departments within, but maybe personnel that you're trying to promote, like a bank that has wealth advisors and mortgage loan originators, or things like a CVS has a pharmacy and photo. I guess those are still departments, but that you kind of get the idea that that's the intent of what we're trying to do.
Got it.
So that's existed for a little bit, right? What we did in our platform was, if you just think about the way we store location data, historically, we've kind of stored these in a flat manner. The example being, you have your main store and then you have two departments, and our platform would say, cool, that's basically 3 different locations. And when you look at things like your reputation score, or you look at reviews in the platform, you'd be able to look at all of them in isolation, but there wasn't a great way to do kind of the roll-up view. So what we actually added to the platform was basically creating this hierarchy, parent-child relationship, that says, well, this is the store, but these are the departments. Or this is the bank, these are the personnel that work within them. This basically set us up to start doing better reporting on behalf of our clients. So one specific example, we had a customer that added on a bunch of departmental listings, and then we ran a rep score for their departments. Well, these brand new listings had no reviews, had very little engagement, and so they had a lower rep score. So that customer was basically like, our rep score went down when you did what you told us to do, which is create these departmental listings. And it was kind of a good point. We were like, oh, you're right, that doesn't make a ton of sense. So now we have the ability to roll up things like the reputation score and basically say, well, it's one store, but just roll up the data from these departments when you're calculating it, calculating rep score, so that you're able to look at it in that manner. So again, it's a little bit more like back end, but I think it's really important to how we're thinking about organizing information as you think about all the things we're doing within our platform.
Yeah. Phil, I did notice that there was a question about reputation score, since you were discussing it. And the question was, what is reputation score and how does your business listing impact it?
So I'll give you the 15-second commercial of it. If you don't know, reputation score is basically the single metric that we believe best represents your brand's digital health. So it includes signals across a bunch of different channels: social engagement, your reviews, the volume, do you respond to them, what's the star rating, your business listing accuracy, as well as the engagement with your website. There's a number of factors. And basically what we do is we compile that into a single score, and then we create industry benchmarks off of that. So if you're in healthcare, we'll say, well, here's your score, and here's where the industry average is and what the best in class is. And we do that across over 200 industries right now. Just to give you kind of that really specific, how do I compare view versus your broader industry.
Yeah, super helpful. And I also know that some of our customers utilize this metric for bonusing, right? So they pay attention to it. The dealers are paying attention to it because every quarter, depending on how they rank and according to their benchmarking, that's what determines how much money goes into the bank for them. So it's quite an important metric for some of our customers. I also had a question come through about how departmental listings can be used for healthcare. So in this particular example, the question is, does this allow us to break out certain areas as departments, such as emergency room or imaging? How can we use this, Phil?
The short answer is yes, but there is a bit of context I'd like to provide. What we're doing in our platform, you can create departments in any way, shape, or form that you want. You can basically say, this is the primary location, and here are the, again, departments or personnel within. The way Google displays that information can vary by industry. And I say that because I showed you that example of the car dealership. That's an industry where they are very actively displaying departmental information. There are other industries where they don't always show it on the listing itself. So what we did is not always going to be something that will be reflected in the same way that car dealership is, although we're always telling Google, hey, we have this data, you should start showing it that way. But our platform can store that in pretty much any way that you want to create that hierarchy, is the way to think about it.
Super helpful. Great.
All right, back to you, Timi.
All right. So I will be covering our final product innovation, and that is social listening. So as many of you know, because you've been customers for a while, our goal has always been to help you turn your feedback into action, meaning when customers leave you a review or leave you a survey response, we'll help you take action on it. And historically, reputation has focused on those owned channels. So an owned channel being a Facebook page that you created and that you own, or an Instagram page that you created and you own, or a survey, right, that you created and you're administering. And so we provide you that visibility, namely around community management, helping you manage that. But one of the areas that we saw as a gap was what customers are saying about you outside of those channels. So what if they're talking about you on Reddit? Or what if they're on their personal Twitter page and they're tweeting about their poor experience at your dealership or your healthcare clinic, or they're living in your apartment, right? What are your customers saying behind your back is essentially what we're trying to figure out here. And so that's where social listening comes into play. And it's one of our newest product offerings. And it's definitely one of the most innovative in my mind, because it's the deliberate process of monitoring, analyzing, and understanding, and then finally acting on all of that unsolicited customer feedback that you probably don't have visibility into today. And so this kind of feedback is really organic, right? Because the person is living in the apartment or they're having a long wait in your waiting room and they're actively tweeting about it. And one of my favorite examples is we are able to actually detect when there's an AWS outage prior to AWS noticing it. So 2 days ago, there was an outage and we were actually able to find that out before we started seeing it on all of the news outlets. That is such a powerful, such a powerful alert, right? If I'm the CMO of AWS, I need to know that my business is, under duress. And so that's exactly the type of alerting and monitoring that we are able to provide you through social listening. So as our example, I need your opinion, Phil, on how you feel about Shake Shack and In-N-Out. What are your thoughts on that?
Shake Shack. So I live in Florida. It's a Whataburger town, but between those two, I'm an In-N-Out guy.
Oh, you're okay. Well, I'm based in California, so I'll give it to you on the price to value ratio. Definitely much better than Shake Shack, but I'm a New Yorker at heart, so Shake Shack has my heart, and that's exactly why I decided to put together a little monitor to show the audience today of what exactly social listening looks like for Shake Shack. So maybe we'll even pick up some of your disgruntled tweets within here, but we'll handle that as they come. So what we're looking at here is our monitor feed for what is being said about Shake Shack in the past 24 hours. In this case, I made it a little bigger to make it easier on your eyes. So if I'm the CMO of Shake Shack, this is incredibly valuable to me because I can go and understand what people are saying about my brand rather. So let us just take a scroll through. This is live data, so we're not quite sure what we're going to find here. Maybe we'll see Phil complaining about his order from last night. Maybe we'll see that the Shake Shack founder, who I believe is Danny Meyer, he's investing in a Mexican fast casual chain. So to me, that means I should probably check out the spot because maybe that quality is going to carry through here. It looks like they're offering some Impossible nuggets and people are really excited about that. So as a CMO, this really gives me the pulse on what my followers, and Shake Shack has quite a loyal following, what people are saying about their brand and what is being associated with their brand. Especially in this tweet in particular, this can be perceived as somewhat negative, right? Because people are now associating them with animal cruelty. And so is that something that maybe I need to get ahead of? Maybe I need to work with my customer service department so that they know how to address these sorts of tweets. Just taking a quick look further down, it looks like there are some locations that are opening soon. This is another opportunity for me to maybe engage with this individual, Lynn, and offer her maybe a coupon for a free burger when it comes to the indie Shake Shack, so that she can be one of the first people and just treating my followers right. So this is a great way of just getting in touch with what folks are saying about your brand, even if they don't follow your page directly. But
Tim,
if I'm a CMO, oh yes, of course.
Sorry, I think this is just a really smart question that came through.
Yeah.
Basically, the intent of the question, I think, is, and I hope I don't butcher this, is people don't talk about this company's brand, the person who asks the question very often. So, there's not like Shake Shack, people are talking about that publicly. So how would someone like that use a tool like this?
Yeah. So I would say that this is a tool that's great for monitoring your brand, especially when you have a large following and you're really out in the public eye. So say, let's just take AWS as an example, right? AWS is a tool that provides cloud computing technology to developers all around the world. And so even though it's not something that's widely talked about and maybe you don't really see it like commercials for it or anything, it is something that developers use very heavily, engineers use very heavily. And especially when something goes down, that's when people start noticing that something is wrong, right? So that's why as the CMO of AWS or as the CMO of Shake Shack, you really want to have that pulse on what the public is saying about you. And I saw a question come through on, how do you actually respond to these sorts of comments, right? When you don't actually have, if you don't actually have an account on that channel. So within social listening, not only do we pull in Twitter tweets, but it's also across message boards, it's across Reddit boards, right? And so in those cases, you will have to create an account in order to respond. And then, for some of the other sources, there actually is not responding enabled. This is sometimes more of building awareness, doing research, and then other times actually doing that responding. So we'll definitely talk through some of those use cases more concretely once we look through the dashboard. So if I'm the CMO, right, I'm probably really busy and I'm not going to spend my time scrolling through a list of tweets like this, as entertaining as this is and as helpful as it is. So rather, I want something to summarize it up for me. And I'm going to scroll back up to the top. So here is an example of a Shake Shack dashboard that I've created to summarize for us the last 24 hours of activity. So exactly the data that we were looking at, but in just a more visual form, so that if I am presenting this up to my superiors, then I can actually show them, right, exactly what is going on. So just scrolling through, we see some mentions over the course of a day. Makes sense that at nighttime, not a whole lot of people are talking about my brand because they're probably sleeping. Of course, that might change based on where your brand is located. So that's another piece of information where I can take my knowledge of where Shake Shack is located or where your locations are located, and I can actually scroll through and see, are people in other countries talking about my brand? So I'm going to quickly jump to that section where I think down here, the top 5 locations, right? The majority of the tweets in the past day have been from the US, but I've also seen a healthy amount of activity from Canada, United Kingdom, Mexico. And so what's interesting about a visualization like this is that if I'm looking to expand my brand, right, I want to see where people already recognize what Shake Shack is, right? And so maybe my comrades over in Singapore, right? Maybe they don't have a Shake Shack just yet, but if many of them are starting to talk about it, and I see the excitement in their tweets saying that, wow, I see these burgers that they have over the US, I really want to try them, then that's a pretty good signal for me to reach out to my expansion team, right? And say, hey, Phil, maybe you're ahead of expansion, and say, this is really a location or a geography that we should look into because we're seeing a lot of interest over there, right? So another way that these insights can drive those actionable insights, really.
Yeah, Timi, there was another really good question that came through asking, can you follow more than just your brand name? They suggested
Yes.
things like industry keywords or trends as well, but can you just talk about the flexibility in creating these monitors?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So we started with Shake Shack, right, which is the well-known brand, and we can actually go broader than Shake Shack, or we can go more narrow. So let's start with the question that was asked. So if I want to go broader, maybe I want to just see the burger industry as a whole. I want to see how Shake Shack is comparing against In-N-Out. How often are people talking about me versus In-N-Out versus Whataburger, right? What is being said? So yes, that's definitely a dashboard that we can configure. I wish I configured it ahead of time so that I could show you exactly, why, Phil, you should be talking about Shake Shack more. But yeah, that is definitely a view that we can provide. I also chose to go the other way. So in this example, if I'm on the Shake Shack team, right, and maybe I'm on like their product and innovations team within Shake Shack. So these are the people who create new burgers and create new versions of fries, right, for me to enjoy. I want to actually know internally, how often are people talking about each of my burgers, right? And I want to know, what is most popular. Of course, I have the data, the sales data, so that I can see volume wise, how many Shack burgers I'm selling compared to truffle burgers. But this is a great way to just see if the public knows about the products that you're offering. Their black truffle burger, first of all, is excellent. But also it's one of their seasonal burgers. So it switches out every so often. So the fact that 16.7% of everybody who's talking about Shake Shack is talking about this black truffle burger says a lot. First, that, yeah, maybe truffle was the right way to go. But secondly, that their marketing is working and that people are actually discussing this. So I wanted to show you this view because not only can we see the industry level trends, but we can also see within your company, right? Are people talking about, in the property management context, are they talking about virtual tours? Are they talking about in-person tours, images online, right? How are people actually trying to come and see your properties? So I'm going to wrap up just by showing you some of the other visualizations that we skipped through up at the top. Ooh, lots of stuff to zoom in here. So some of the other areas that have been valuable to our customers are around the trending entities, adjectives, and phrases, right? So if you are managing your social media presence and you're struggling as to what kind of content you should be creating that really resonates with your audience, this is a good way to get a pulse on that. Clearly, lots of people talk about burgers, but we also have some folks talking about Tacombi, Mexican, right? I think that's the brand that the founder was investing in. Maybe let's look at some of the phrases. So it looks like there's black truffle burger. What do you know, right? Maybe it's time for me to promote that one more time so that people, just continue to build that cult following around this burger. Lots of emojis being used. I can also try to get an understanding of who is talking about my brand and who I should be potentially reaching out to as a partner, as a sponsor, as an influencer, right? One one user that catches my mind is the Sixers. I'm personally a Bulls fan. Phil, I know you used to live in Chicago. Hopefully you're still a Bulls fan. But hey, if the Sixers are talking about Shake Shack and I'm the CMO of Shake Shack, yeah, I'm going to reach out to them. And yeah, it sounds like they're pretty excited about Shake Shack. So, this is an opportunity for me to maybe reach out to them, their next team meal, right? Let me just sponsor that for them. And, that gets me a lot of good press. So a lot of great marketing strategy that can come out of this. So to summarize, I'm going to go over just some of the use cases that we covered today. I know we covered a lot of ground as far as the dashboards go. And that's really the beauty of social listening, is that there are so many ways that you can utilize this data, and so many ways that you can slice and dice it. So we talked about understanding the Shake Shack brand, right? Understanding what our competitors are seeing. So the Shake Shack versus In-N-Out versus Whataburger, apparently controversy, just understanding, having a pulse on that. Content strategy, knowing now that the Black Truffle Burger is doing so well, maybe I should publish, a couple more posts around that. And then even, the 76ers around influencer marketing, reaching out to them and maybe just having them do a partnered post where, someone who's on the team, whoever that might be, they're like shooting the basketball and like have a burger in their hand, just as a brand placement opportunity. So that was everything that I had for social listening. So I believe I'm going to wrap up now with
2 quick things, Timi. Sorry
Yes.
to interrupt you, but two quick things. We actually got a lot of questions and we did not answer all of them. So I just want to point out to everyone that we are going to be following up with the questions that we did not answer. There were a bunch of questions that were very specific, like what does this feature do? What does this color mean? Which we're going to get to. We obviously had to pick and choose what we were going to talk about live. The second thing is, obviously, if you're interested in learning more, we want to be able to engage with you. So, that's something that is, if you're a current customer, you should have your customer success manager available to you. If you're not, going to reputation.com and requesting that conversation. Of course, we want to be available as much as possible. So just wanted to put things out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll leave this information up. I think we have a couple more minutes, right, to maybe get through some of the remaining questions. So we'd love to, just hammer out as many as we can. So maybe let's go in the order that we were discussing the topics in. So we had a question come in about Apple Maps, right, and how to actually provide a URL for that. So Phil, can you tell us a bit more about like the onboarding experience around Apple?
So it's a little bit nuanced. I won't go too deep into it, but the general idea is if it already exists, we absolutely can give you guidance on how to get that URL to have it in the platform. If it doesn't exist and you use our business listings product, we're able to, well, of course, go out and there's the claiming process and creating of that listing. Not knowing the specific scenario, I don't want to try to get too nuanced, but please, if that's a thing that you need to have us help with, just let us know and we'll have to.
Absolutely. And that's where our customer service team and our support team are really well versed in how to get you onboarded onto Apple. So definitely reach out to them if you're a current customer, and they're more than happy to walk you through, how to get Apple connected. So thank you for asking that question. I think there was also another question around community management. So someone asked if you have an individual who is rather disgruntled. We all know those customers, right? We all have them. And they are making their way through some of your posts or through your messages and sending you multiple messages, right? Then how can I get that overall image of how this person is feeling, right? And so that's a great question. That's exactly the intention of the customer panel that we were looking at on the right, where we were seeing all of the customer engagements. So in the example that I gave, right, if that Timi user was rather unhappy, leaving 1-star reviews, very negative on your social posts, all of that would show up within the same place, so that you can actually see all of that together. And then hopefully that gives you a more holistic view of how this person's sentiment is, how likely they are to come back as a customer, and really how important they are to you. We'll be adding additional facts such as how many followers that individual has, just really what's the potential reach of what this person is saying. So hopefully, that's able to give you a better idea of how high of a priority this person should be. Let's see. And then let's see, I think Phil, we got a couple of questions on listening, so maybe let's just focus on those questions for a second, right? So let's see. So I think there was a question of what the individual colors mean, right? So when it comes to social listening, we also do a lot of analysis on the data that is coming in. So some of the colors that you were seeing were around sentiment. So this is a topic that's familiar to those of us who use reviews and surveys and even social within the reputation platform. We gained our social listening capability through an acquisition, actually. So we are still merging those two platforms together. So you'll see the colors of red, green, and yellow being brought into the social listening product more and more as we create that more cohesive and seamless experience. So that's what the colors were. And then there were comments. There was a question about how do you actually decide what mentions are getting pulled in, right? So one of the steps that I did skip over was how you configured the monitor to monitor for Shake Shack versus In-N-Out versus Whataburger, right? So the answer to that is you can absolutely put in as many brands, industry keywords, competitors as you want, and we'll be able to pull them all into the same dashboard. And then we can actually even segment it out. So in the case where I was looking at individual products, right, one thing that might be interesting to the CMO of Shake Shack is how In-N-Out is doing versus how Whataburger is doing versus what Shake Shack is doing, and actually having separate dashboards for each of those brands, right? So that is absolutely something that we can set up. All right. So I think that is about all the time we have for today. I believe we got through most of the questions. So thank you all so much for engaging with us. Phil and I really enjoyed just really having this conversation with you all around what all we've been up to, what all our teams have been working hard on. So thank you for this opportunity. Again, if you have any additional questions or want to follow up on any of these items, feel free to reach out to your customer service representative or go to our website for a demo. And on behalf of Reputation, I want to wish you all happy holidays and thank you so much for joining us today. Have a good one.
Bye, everybody.